is for training purposes in TV news education. Some copyrighted material is used and is credited on screen. However, no more was taken than was necessary to tell the story of the event. YBA claims fair use of material.
Welcome back to Wicked Teen. Thank you, Alex. That was a great interview. But honestly, what's up with sports guys and their egos?
I don't know, but that calling in sounds like Anthony Everett from Chronicle on Channel 5. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, guys. How are you?
How are you?
Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for coming to Wicked Teen. I'm Dan, and this is Hannah.
Hi.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, Dan. How are you?
We're doing great, and I think, Hannah, we have a few questions for you.
Fire away. I'm ready.
Awesome. So, what was your first broadcasting experience?
Well, my very first broadcasting experience was in Colorado at a small radio and TV station that actually was based in Aspen, Colorado, which people give me a lot of grief about because it was like paradise. I was a sportscaster, like Jimmy Young, doing sort of local sports, and then I moved pretty quickly into news at the same station.
That's awesome. So, can you remember your first interview?
I can remember being really, really nervous in my first interview. I was interviewing a local high school basketball coach, and I forget what the story was, and I just was petrified about not remembering sort of what to ask him, and even when he was answering the question, what my next question was going to be, and just being so wrapped up in my head about that. I remember being really nervous about it.
That's how I feel right now.
Yeah, we're pretty much right now.
You're doing fine so far.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, what makes Chronicle different from any other magazine show?
Well, there really is no other Chronicle anywhere in the country, so it's unique just in and of itself. I think what makes it have a life that it's had is that it's in New England, and I don't think there's really any place else in the country that has the kind of geographic diversity, history, educational community, medical community, all the things that come together to allow us to tell a lot of really good stories. So I think it's really a combination of being in New England, there really being no other place in the country that you could do it, and telling really good stories over a course of 30 years, and having good producers, good photographers, and good editors that make that all happen.
That's awesome. So, you said that you were on Chronicle before.
Well, actually, I was on Chronicle when Susan Warwick came to my dance studio, so that was an interesting little thing that happened to me. But I had one more question for you, Anthony. What was your fondest memory of doing any show, Chronicle or any of your previous shows?
You know, I get asked that question a lot, and I never really have a great answer for it. There's so many shows that stand out. Their travel shows always kind of come to mind. We had a chance to go to South Korea a couple of years ago and report on how innovative they are in terms of being a wired country, more so than any other country in the world. Traveling to the Caribbean, which we do pretty much every year, and some of the great, fun places that we've gone down there, St. Lucia and St. Thomas and all over the place. And so the travel shows always kind of come to mind because they're kind of exotic, but ultimately, I think the best stories are stories about people, and just the other night, as a matter of fact, we did a sort of an in-depth financial story about a lot of people that got ripped off by a company in Massachusetts that they were investing in, and the stories that they told about losing their homes and having to move and losing their life savings and their children's college tuition funds and et cetera. I think anything that has a really good personal story is a good story.
And speaking of stories, what do you think are some of the most major changes in media journalism? What's really affecting the media world today?
It's almost hard to know where to start. I mean, obviously the internet and the explosion of sources of information is probably the largest effect that we've seen maybe ever. Although every generation kind of has its own explosion of information, ours just happens to be the internet. But the way that it's fractionalized advertising and therefore affected the ability for companies to make money and hire people and do good journalism, I think is dramatic. And the fact that initially a lot of major media outlets, including the New York Times and Channel 5 and other places, ABC, gave everything away for free on the internet. And now we're trying to find a way to get people to pay for that. That's a really hard thing to do, and nobody's really figured that out. And you can't give something away for free on the one hand and ask people to pay for it on the other hand. It's an unsustainable business model. So hopefully somebody's going to figure out a way to make a little money on the web so we can still do what's our core business, which is the television side for us or the print side for newspapers or the radio side for radio stations.
So going back to Chronicle, would you rather work for Chronicle or work for a news station being an anchor?
Well, I've done both. I was the anchor at Channel 5 for many years, and I was a little reluctant to leave. It's a little hard to leave the pace of a newsroom and the excitement of kind of the deadline pressure of everyday journalism. But I would have to say that my greatest professional rewards have absolutely been on Chronicle because we have more time to tell stories, and there are many, many nights when I get off the set on Chronicle and I think, wow, that was really, really good. And I had sort of stopped having that feeling about news, and so professionally, in terms of my own personal reward, Chronicle far and away is more rewarding. Are there times when there's a really big story happening and the juices get flowing and you kind of wish you were in the newsroom? Sure, but if it's a big enough story, Chronicle sometimes will do that also.
So what was your favorite place to travel when you were working with Chronicle?
I think that South Korea trip was really interesting just because it was so different. Again, we were reporting on how they're the most wired country in the world, and this was 4 or 5 years ago, and at the time you could take your smartphone and you could go from the tallest building to the deepest subway and watch live television the entire time, and that was well before we had any type of that kind of connectivity here in America. So just seeing that was probably the most interesting trip that I've taken. We have, as I said, traveled across the country, and we've also traveled other places in the world. But for me, that South Korea trip was probably the most exotic. I mean, Chronicle's traveled to Alaska and all over Europe and China. I haven't been on all those trips, but Chronicle has gone many, many places over the years.
That's great. So one final question. Being two new broadcasters, do you have any words of advice to any aspiring broadcasters, anyone that wants to work in the news world?
Well, I think more than anything, you have to be able to diversify. You have to have multiple skill sets. So you have to be able to do what you're doing right now, which is interviewing, and you have to be able to handle yourself in front of a camera and on television as you're doing right now. But you also need to be able to manipulate the information. You need to be able to take video. You need to be able to record sound. You need to be able to do a lot of different things. Ultimately, though, never forgetting the fact that you've got to be sure you've got your information right. There's a lot of sources of information out there, but making sure that you have good sources, good information, accurate information, the story that you do is presented objectively. The fundamentals of journalism haven't changed, even though all the bells and whistles around it have.
Well, that's terrific. Anthony, it's Jimmy Young. I actually joined these guys in studio. I want to thank you personally for coming on our first live program here, streamed onto the internet, and great words of advice for these kids. You did forget to plug the fact that signing up here at Young Broadcasters America is probably one of the most important things for their futures, right?
It seems so obvious, Jimmy. I didn't think I needed to mention that, but you're obviously right.
Especially since I'm in the studio prompting you. Again, thank you so much for calling back. We had a little issue with the timing and all that, but it ended up perfect. And again, I enjoy your work as always, as these kids do, and you set a great example for us all. Thank you again. Thank you to everybody at Channel 5 as well.
Thank you, guys. Best of luck. You did a very nice job on the interview. So
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. I think Miss Hannah's going to be calling you soon. No, I'm only kidding. You guys did a great job as host on this.
Thanks,
you know,
Jimmy.
we've only met, well, I met you about a month and a half ago, only about a month. You guys have a bright future. This is going to be a great program. pretty soon we're actually going to have a professional producer in here.
Wow.
As opposed to me, okay? Because I'm much too old to do this kind of in the you know, trenches kind of stuff, and you know, there are a few things that I was pretty embarrassed about that we didn't get on time. But thank you so much. You guys really did a great job with it, and we're going to have a lot more fun on this show. We're going to be doing this once a month, so hopefully you'll figure it out, tune it in, check it out, look at your email, and follow the whole Wicked team development here. So for Daniel and Hannah and Kyle, who directed this. Poor kid, I think he wants to kill me, but that's okay. He can. Mark, the assistant, helped us out as well, Mark. And again, to all of you for supporting us all this time. So again, have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you next month on Wicked Team.